see if I can get close enough. Pretty good. Okay, so it looks like I'm getting a little bit of shadow. And let's see if I pull that down just a little bit, move that a bit. All right, so if you are interested in any of the products that I'm using, I invite you to shop with me. Here's the address to shop. You do get a free gift with any purchase when you use the host code. So, all right, so let's talk about the floating frames cards. Here are the 2 cards we're making. They are so much fun. You can see all the dimension going on. All of this is floating on the card. I am using the Magnolia Mood, and you get one with the actual shaped image and one with the frame that's used from the same steps. So those are the 2 pretty cards. I thought I'd show them to you so you understand what's going on with us. Let's see. We are using, again, the Magnolia Mood stamp set. This is an online exclusive, so if you're thinking you don't recognize it from a catalog, it's because you can only view it online, although anybody can purchase it. It has amazing floral images. There's a big magnolia bloom with a small blossom, just the bud and a small bloom, a leaf, and some great sentiments. And I'm going to say this is a distinctive style that is just going to be inked up and look amazing when you stamp down. It does have coordinating dies. So it's got outline dies and the detail dies. And although you might be interested in fussy cutting some of the larger images, because they're really not that difficult to fussy cut, the die does kick out those little inside bits, so that's kind of convenient with the dies itself. I love the huge detailed blossom. So that is our focus bundle. The greeting, let's see, let me bring that back, that I put on one of the cards comes from the Thoughtful Moments dies, which is a hybrid set. Very cool how it embosses and cuts at the same time. So by embossing, you get that raised image. If you ink it up with a brayer, you're also going to get the outline of the greeting. So I think you can kind of see it. This is tone on tone. So it's bubble bath ink on bubble bath cardstock. You can see how it's kind of puffy. Really a fun hybrid set. So, and then one last thing we are using is the deckled rectangles, and I'm just using one size. I'm using the 4th largest. So those are our tools that we're using. Let's talk about our supplies. And just to confirm, I've got the 9 steps down here. And again, if you want the written instructions, because I do have the PDF, make sure you are on the email list. All right, so for our materials, here's what we're going to need to get started. You need a small scrap of the bubble bath, and that will be just for that greeting that I just mentioned. We need a basic white scrap, or almost half a sheet of basic white. We need a full 8.5 by 11 of the basic white thick cardstock. So you may notice there are 2 kinds of basic white. There's the thick cardstock, which I highly recommend for the card base, and then there's just the basic white cardstock, which is your layering cardstock. Sometimes crafters make the mistake of using the basic white standard cardstock as their base, and the thick really does give you a little bit more rigidity for your stamping. Now, in addition, there's a couple of non-Stampin' Up! Supplies we need. I've got a piece of copy paper, and it measures 5.5 by 4.25, which is the exact size of a card front for a standard card. And then from the kitchen, we need the Glad Press and Seal sealing wrap, and we'll go over how we use that when we get to that technique. All right, so I am going to prep my card base. We're going to get 2 cards from the one sheet, and here's how I like to do it. Rather than duplicate steps, I'm first going to score the cardstock. Do you do it this way? Or do you like to just cut the amount of card that you're going to need? So I'm using my stamping trimmer, which has both the scoring blade and the cutting blade. And I know that on a standard card size, the score goes right at the half mark. So that would be 4 1/4. So this is going to be a horizontal card or landscape. And be careful that you don't use your cutting blade because we're just scoring. The scoring blade is the lighter color blade, right? So if you have the stamping trimmer, this is the best way to go. I know some crafters like to use other trimmers. So it really is a great tool because you can do both the chores with one tool. So I just rotated the cardstock. This is the thick cardstock. Now I'm going to cut it. So now I need the cutting blade. I'm going to slice it right in half, and I have my 2 card bases that I need. So right now we're just setting up our tools. So here's what we've got going on. 2 card bases, a scrap for stamping, a scrap for die cutting, and then our copy paper, which is going to help with the prep. So at any point, if you have a question, make sure you post it in the comments. I'm trying to watch at the same time, and I'm going to take a sip. It is not happy hour yet, so right now my drink of choice is just ice water for Friday afternoon. But hopefully later in the afternoon I'll get to enjoy happy hour as well. All right, so our first step, we have our supplies at the ready. So this is what I'm saying. Step 1 is to stamp, color, and cut. So as a crafter, I think that that's a pretty simple series to put into one step. Here's what we're going to need to stamp, color, and cut from our stamp set. We are going to be stamping the large magnolia, the buds, the single flower, and the leaf. All right, and I'm going to move my steps out of the way, but I'm going to use that as my reference sheet. I choose to stamp in gray granite. I don't want a stark black outline on my images, so I'm using gray granite. My pad is a little bit juicy because I just inked it up, so hopefully it will be okay. I'm going to take my basic white. This is the standard cardstock, and here's what we're going to stamp. This is a huge stamp, and I'm using block E. I do like to use all the different size blocks. I find if it's closer to the size of the actual stamp, I get better results. It's just easier to handle that way. This is a large image, so you saw what I did. I just flipped that over and kind of did that. So gray granite, have you been working with that? It's not a gray, it's not a tan, it's got a really pretty neutral tone to it. One of my favorite standard neutrals to ink with. Okay, so I am going to be die cutting this one, so I'm just going to push down there, and I'm going to press firmly. This is a giant image, so make sure that you press firmly all over so you get a good inking. And there you go. So I'm going to stop right there and show you the detail on this image just from that stamp set. So I think it's stunning, even with no color on it. So if you like to color, you're going to like this. If you don't like to color, you will still enjoy using this stamp set. So I needed 1 of the large, and I need 4 of the buds. So I'm going to stamp 4, and I have enough scrap here to kind of space these out. That way I can try and tackle a couple of dies in one crank. So 1 more. All right, and then I need the single buds, and I need 3 of these. And by the way, you can use this floating frames technique on lots of images and lots of themes. So just put on your thinking caps and come up with lots of little themes that you might need for your upcoming cards. So I need 3 of these, 3 blossoms, and then I'm going to go with that small leaf, and I'm going to stamp about 5. Now, I might not need all 5, but I find it's kind of convenient to have the extra just in case. So 4, and I'm going to do 1 more. There we go. So that is our stamping. So we're still on step 1. This was stamp. Next, I'm going to color. And just because I don't want to keep you too long this afternoon, I am going to do 1 color. I'm going to show you how I colored that large blossom, and then you'll get the idea. You'll get the drift, right? Okay, so I am coloring today with Stampin' Blends. Now, sometimes I like to color with my ink pad. Sometimes I like to color with the color pencils, sometimes direct to ink. Lots of different techniques for applying color. These blends, now I'm going to say my Old Olive is one of my oldest, probably the first combo that I got. And I tend to share mine during classes and clubs. And so sometimes the tips, particularly the brush tip, gets really frayed. So we'll see how this one's going to work. I often replace, but they still need to be looked after carefully, especially if you want the detailing. So I'm going to do the leaves in Old Olive, and this is the dark. And I know when I put both the light and the dark blends in a card kit, my stampers get a little bit confused on what color to use. So generally I like to use the darker for the detailing, and again, it's a matter of choice whether you want to do the dark first or second, because then I like to blend in the light, and it kind of smooths in the darker outline and the darker detail. So that is my leaf, 1 leaf anyway. I'm going to bring in, and I'm going to be doing it in portions. I don't like to do the whole image in the single color because these are alcohol. They will dry out, and I find that they blend a little bit nicer if you have smaller patches of work. So again, I did the dark, and then I'm coming in with the light, and this is Old Olive. I must say I have also used Lemon Lime Twist for the leaves on this particular stamp set, and both are absolutely gorgeous. So Lemon Lime Twist is a lighter green, kind of like a new spring green, I think, and then the Old Olive is a little bit deeper. And again, I'm doing 2 just for the sake of kind of speeding up. I don't want you to have to watch me blend in detail. Some crafters are experts at coloring and take their time. I am not that crafter. I like to get my color on there and just be done with it. Now, I mostly use the brush tip. When I need to get into the smaller corners and tips, I might bring in the pen tip. And on your blend, just in case you're a newbie, you do have help on the pen itself. You can see the wider brush line and the thinner pen tip. So that's how you can tell. I feel like I'm kind of dressed my ink colors today. Just check out my nails. The nails remind me of boho blue, and then my shirt reminds me of wild wheat today. And I just tend to think I live in Stampin' Up colors now. And I like the little alliteration with the names, just like the name of Moody Magnolia. It's not just magnolias, it's Moody Magnolia. And I'm waiting for my magnolia tree to bloom and blossom. I have a beautiful big tree in my front yard, but here in California, it's not yet time for it, so just be patient. Okay, so there, I've got my green leaves so far. Let me share with you. Bring it up a little bit closer so you can see. I'll just come in with that. And so you can see the dark bits and the lighter on the green leaves. Now the blossom itself, I've seen it colored many ways. Magnolias, if you're familiar with magnolias, many of them are just white with a little bit of color on the edging. They have like a pink hue on the tips, around the edges, so that's what I went with, the light bubble bath. And I am pretty much going to go opposite of what I just told you, and I'm starting this time with the lighter. And I'm just gonna use the brush tip, and I'm gonna do short, quick strokes because I don't wanna put a lot of color on here. I want them pretty simple. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So on this one, this is what I'm gonna start with. You can see it's very faint. So I do short strokes to just add a little bit of hint of color, just a tinge. If you like your colors a little bit more overall and more vibrant, you're welcome to color the entire image. I'm just adding a tinge of color on the magnolia because I want to be true to the flower. I want it a little bit lighter. And now I'm on the larger blossom, and you can see how very quick strokes just on the lighter bits, and I'm going with the coloring on the stamped image. It's already got shading built in, so right around where the shading is on my stamped image is where I'm doing my short strokes. So short and quick. And you can see I'm going to share with you how that's looking. So just a little bit of color in there, right? I don't want a lot. Now, for the darker, the shading on it, I've done different techniques. Just to be quick, I'm going to stick with the blends, and now I'm using the light moody mauve. And on this one, I'm going to use the brush tip, and I'm just going to come in kind of like in the little darker areas here and add a little bit of tone, darker tone in there, right where the image already has darker bits. And I'm not going to put too much. I find I get disappointed when there's too much color on there, especially on something like this that I want really subtle and just a little bit of shading. Now this part I'm going to be really careful with because, again, I don't want too much color on there. And I am going to come back in and blend that. So I want it more bubble bath than moody mauve. So just blending it a bit. And again, I'm following the stamped image on how I'm going to blend that in. Blend in the darker bits and the highlights. So very faint. There we go. And I am going to leave it at that. Again, I find if I keep at it, I tend to overdo it. Oops, I'm putting the wrong caps on the wrong blends. I want to stay away from over coloring. So those are my colors. And I pretty much repeated the same technique with all of the images. So we're still on step one, which was stamp, color, and cut. And again, I need the standard size the standard size cut and emboss machine, or emboss and cut machine. And I'm using the outline dies to cut. And let's see if I have those cut and at the ready, because I kind of want to be done with step one. So here we go. We've got one large, let's see, 4 buds and 3 singles, and then my leaves. And there should be about 5 more or less, all colored in the same way and cut with the dies from the coordinating die set. So let's see, I'm wondering where to put, by the way, I'm doing really well with not losing too many things lately. I've been using my little organizer, which stores my tools, my bone folder, my snips, my take your pick. They're all there so that I don't lose them as I'm crafting. And I'm wondering what to do with my greeting, which I have already inked cut and embossed all in one step. I love the Hello. That die set has lots of greetings on it. And I just happened to get an extra Oh Happy Day out of the same little piece. I'm going to hang on to that because I'm going to want to use that. All right, so step one. Here, let's review. We've got stamp, color, cut. We were taking care of that. Next, we're going to go on to step two, which is to take our copy paper and we're going to trace the die that we are going to be using. You know what? I forgot. On in my basket still is my light wild wheat blend because I forgot to share with you how I colored the center of the big blossom. You can kind of see in there, it needs a little bit of color, right? So I took my wild wheat blend. This is the pen tip. And on this one, I just did short, again, short little strokes to add the color to the center of the flower. All right, just so you know, that was my color scheme. The wild wheat, the moody mauve, and the old olive. Okay, so now I've got, and let me make some space in here. I've got my copy paper. I've got my fourth largest deckled rectangle die. I'm going to take a pencil, and no worries about going too dark or making a mistake on how you're tracing your rectangle because you're not even going to see this. It's not going to be seen. So this is how I'm going to arrange my images because this is the size of the card front. I'm going to start with my largest image and I'm going to put it in position. And let's see, I'm going to use my finished cards as a reference. So what I like to do, this part is a little bit more helpful. If you overlap your cutting area, it's going to make the adhering process a little bit easier. And by that I mean, I don't want to just put this right in the middle where there are these tiny bits hanging off. I want to make it a little bit more substantial. So I've got quite a bit of that blossom hanging and the leaves here. So I'm going to put that as my center point. I'm going to come in and I'm going to put one of the buds in the corner. And again, I'm going to try to add, see, I've got it crossing over the line right there. All right, how's it going? Is this sounding pretty simple? Took another sip of my water there. Okay, so now I'm going to take another one of those buds and I'm going to bring it in at the bottom of the frame. And again, I want a little bit on both sides of that line. Now that's a tiny piece there. What if I bring it up just a little bit? There we go. So I have a little bit more within the line. All right, now I'm going to bring in one of my single flowers, and here's where I might run into a little bit of trouble. So this is why you arrange before you actually adhere. So let's go there, and if I slant that just a tiny bit, it's a little bit cramped, but that's okay. Let's tip that just a tiny bit. Okay, so we've got that in position. I'm going to take another one of those buds and I'm going to bring it in at the bottom of the card, so lower left, and let me just double check I've got everything on screen for you. All right, so Moody Mauve is one of my favorites, the in colors. Actually, I love all the in colors from 23, 25. This Moody Mauve is just a beautiful pink, I guess it would be, and I think it pairs nicely with the bubble baths. That's what you're seeing in the overall image. All right, then I'm going to have another single blossom, and this one looks like it's mostly going to be outside the frame. So there's that, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Let's get another blossom, and we'll bring it in there. All right, and as I said, you might not even need all the pieces that we die cut, but it's nice to have the extra. Now we've got the majority or the larger images. I'm still going to push that over a little bit. Now I can fill in with the smaller, so I'm going to have that little leaf peeking in like it's flying or floating in the tree. And I'm going to come in with another leaf, and I'm going to try and stay outside the line. I don't want just that little stem to be part of the inside. And let's see, let's bring this in, see if we can go down low enough so that it crosses both sides of the line. Let's bring in a leaf above, and right like so. I'm going to bring it in just a tiny bit. Okay, and one more, just floating off the edge here. Okay, so check out your placement before you continue on to the next step. And I'm kind of liking the overall arrangement. Some of them might be a little bit cramped. Let's see if I can add a little bit of air in here. Let's see. No, that really, I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so I like my arrangement. So that was step 2. I traced the deckled rectangle and I arranged the Magnolia die cuts. I'm going on to step 3, which is to lay the press and seal over the arranged dies. Now I'm going to bring my press and seal over, and I should have done this earlier. Could have done it earlier. I'm going to grab just a small piece of the wrap, and let's see. I am carefully going to bring this up, and hopefully you can see it's a little up. I was going to move it, but don't want to move it now because it already grabbed hold. So this part I'm going to press down firmly, and I am going to take my snips. Hopefully I can cut some of this seal off because I don't need that big of a piece. You don't even need the whole width of one tear. I think earlier I did 2 cards with just, or sorry, 2 processes with 1 piece of the press and seal. Okay, I wanted to eliminate the extra because we are going to be next, step 4, we are going to trim off the excess press and seal. So this is step 4, and I'm just pressing a little bit firmer so that I've got everything attached. I'm going to try and lift this off of my glass mat. By the way, I've heard that the glass mat is going to be available soon for demonstrators who weren't able to order it on pre-order, and then also for customers, because it's a very cool tool. All right, so I'm trying to fold this over, and what I'm doing is eliminating the tackiness of the press and seal, so it's going to be a little bit easier to place it on my trimmer. So next I'm going to trim off that excess wrap. I'm going to bring in my trimmer again, and I am going to place the edge of the copy paper on the track, go with my cutting blade, and all I did, you can see I've got my extra bits, and I'm going to save these because I might want to fill in if I have a little bare spot on the actual card front. I'm rotating. I'm going to do this on all 4 sides. So I'm going to eliminate that. And so just 9 steps to the floating frame card technique. If you want the written instructions for this, you can take your notes now, but if you want the written instructions, make sure you're on my email list. They will be sent out probably Monday morning, maybe sooner if I if I get to it. I have other things I need to do this weekend. Okay, so there, I've done my trimming. You're gonna see how it's very much just the size of the card front. I've got my main large image and then some of the smaller buds and the blossoms there all ready to go. So let's look at the next. We are going to, center the fourth largest deckled rectangle die in the center and pass it through the cut and emboss machine. In other words, we're going to be doing some die cutting. I'm going to put that right in the center, and I need the standard size cut and emboss machine. So here we go. We're going to be cranking. Whoops, I lifted that out of position here. Let me place that back. So the thing with the press and seal is we need it because it's tacky, but the setback is that if it's too tacky, it causes some little glitches. So let's see. For this cutting, I need my platform. I need my shim number 2. I need a cutting plate on the bottom. I need my paper that I'm going to cut. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. And then I'm going to put my deckled rectangle, and I'm using that pencil line as a guide, but also I'm going to check and make sure I feel like it's centered. Then we need the plate on top. So this is just standard die cutting, right? Pressing down, crank it through. Okay, let me get this out of the way. All right, let's see, let's take this off. The magic's gonna start happening soon. And we are gonna jump to step 6. So we just did step 5, we die cut. And step number 6 is going to be to carefully remove the copy paper layer from the 2 pieces. And we're going to adhere standard and mini dimensionals to every piece of the die cuts. So let me show you what that means. In other words, let's start with this one here. We are going to flip it over, and I'm going to be really gentle to pull up the copy paper. And I want to get to the edge. Remember that press and seal is tacky. Let me use my tool here. It's tacky, and that's what we like about it, but it's also what creates a little bit of a job. So I'm kind of just pulling it around. I use my take your pick to get me started. There we go. And I'm just peeling off the copy paper gently. I want the images to stick to it. So I've got that piece there. This is now rubbish. And I'm going to do one at a time. So now I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Dimensionals. Let's see where I've got them. I've got standard and I've got mini. And you can see what I did on these. I have lined through with my Sharpies that helps me identify the backing of that, right? Oh, thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you sending this out to other crafters who might want to learn this process and get inspired to create other kinds of cards with new techniques. So I'm going to use the standard size in the bigger bits. And see, with that line on the backing, it's easy to just show where I'm going to have to remove the covering. Without it, it's kind of tricky to know whether or not it's uncovered or not. So generally, I'm going to put a dimensional on every piece of this die cut, of every die cut, because it's going to be adhered directly to our card base. And you can see I'm trying to use the larger ones for the larger areas. I'm going to come back in with the minis and get these smaller areas here so that everything adheres onto the card front. You don't want anything falling off. And so the minis and the standard are our best friends on this project, right? There we go. And generally, I think I'm pretty happy with all that. All right, let's do the second piece, which is the frame itself. I'm going to push this to the side. And again, I need to remove the copy paper. So let's see if I can help myself. Yeah, this one's a little bit easier. I'm going to gently take it off. You don't want your die cuts to be removed from the press and seal. What do you think? Does this look like a technique you'd try? It might be a little bit fussy. It's not just a standard, pretty simple card. A little bit more of a technique, which takes a little bit of time. Remember, you're getting 2 cards from the one process. All right, again, now I'm going to start off with my larger dimensionals. Oops. And that press and seal is going to be sticky, so be careful that you don't pull off the die cuts. We need them to stay on the press and seal. And I just want to make sure that every piece of cardstock has some kind of adhesive to keep it in place. All right, so upcoming, I know I'm thinking about what I'm doing this weekend. Upcoming is Mother's Day. You want to get your cards at the ready. Tomorrow I'm going to be at a kind of like a shopping mart, and I will be selling my handmade cards and kits. And mostly I'm taking my Mother's Day cards because it is coming up, and I know I often hear from stampers, well, my mother passed, I don't need any Mother's Day cards. However, many of us have daughters or sons who are married. We have daughter-in-laws that are moms. We have friends that are moms. We have sisters that are moms, aunts. And let's take it a step further. We might have friends who are fur baby moms. I mean, any kind of mother should be recognized, I think. So, and of course you can have a card that customizes each kind of celebration. All right, so I'm doing an overall review just to make sure I've got dimensionals all over. Sometimes I get a little stray piece that didn't get stuck. And the reason I'm trying to be thorough about it is because when you take a card in and out of an envelope, it has the capacity to fall off if it's not secured. All right, we're going to start with the die cut itself, the center rectangle die. Now is the time I'm going to bring in my card base. By the way, we are now on step number 7. We're going to take the deckled rectangle and center it on one of the cards to help with positioning for the greeting. And we're going to be stamping our greeting in Old Olive. Okay, so this is the thick cardstock. It's half a sheet of cardstock, so 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. Used my bone folder to get a nice crease on the paper, so no crumbling there. I'm going to take my deckled rectangle, and that is going to go right on here. Look how pretty that looks, nice and clean already. Now, I want a greeting on here, and I'll tell you the kind of greeting I prefer for this simple card is just one linear line, and I'm getting set to stamp. I am using Old Olive. This is my old style stamping pad. I still prefer this style to the new ones. I just feel like they handle easier. Now I'm going to position this in place because I want to see where I want to put my greeting. And I pretty much want it up to the bottom edge of the card. My greeting, by the way, comes from the March Paper Pumpkin. It's the perfect type of greeting It says, "You've been on my mind," and I find that that is a very useful greeting. It's kind of like thinking of you. So sometimes we need to reach out to friends just to let them know that we have been thinking of them. Who wouldn't want to know that, right? And this is why I have my rectangle there. I want to position this right at the base. This is an old olive, and I used my piercing mat to get a nice inking. Pretty happy with that. I'm done with my ink pad. Uh-oh. All right, let's get started here. And, oops. Okay, here we go. So here's what we're gonna do. It's gonna go right in position there. Now I'm gonna flip this over, and we are gonna remove the backings of these dimensionals, just the backings. See how much easier that is with that little stripe on the dimensional. So I'm really thrilled with the way these came out. I love this bundle. I think these images are just gorgeous. And I hope that you think so too. These stamp sets that are online only are kind of hard to gauge. I mean, it's not the same as seeing it in catalog, not the same as seeing it in person. So it's a nice surprise when it's just stunning. All right, so I've removed all the backings. Gonna flip this over and position it. See, it still has the press and seal on it. I can hold it up there, go slowly, position it in place, and then drop it down. All right, and our step number 7, we're gonna, let's see, we stuck it to the card. Next, we're gonna peel off the press and seal, and you're going to be gentle. You don't want to rip the cardstock. And it's still going to be a little bit tacky. If your press and seal is really, really tacky, I'm going to make a suggestion on how to remedy that. Voila. Okay. There we go. So there is our card. So if your images are kind of tacky, what I like to do, yikes, I moved it. Take your embossing buddy and just apply a little bit of the powder on there. Rub that around. Takes off the tackiness, so it will slide in the envelope easily. And then what we're gonna do, we're going to do the second card, which is a little bit different because remember, this is a frame. So I need my second card base. And I'm going to fold and burnish using the bone folder. This is going to go here. And on this one, I'm going to bring in my silicone mat and put this down in position here. Let's go ahead and remove the backings from this frame. And I find that if I put my finger down on the cardstock rather than on the press and seal, I'm not fighting with the stickiness, so you need to keep that in place. Take all the backings off, and there's quite a few. So make sure you have a new supply of dimensionals, both sizes. By the way, and just as I thought about that, the upcoming catalog has price increases, and one of the things that's going up is cardstock, or several of the things going up is cardstock, some of the adhesives, envelopes, there are a few things going up. So I'm hoping to share that list. You may have seen it floating around the internet. By the way, the reason I have this here is so that see, these are now exposed. They're sticky, but they are not sticking onto my card base because I have that silicone mat in place. Now I'm going to pull it up just a little at a time, and let's see how I'm doing here within your vision. I want to make sure that you can see everything that's going on here. I'm going to pull the silicone mat up, and I'm going to just tap down to adhere and keep pulling, keep revealing, and see if you didn't have the silicone mat, you would be struggling with those tacky dimensionals. And there we go. Now I see I have a little bit of an issue here. Somehow my frame got distorted. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull that, turn that over, and just take my paper snips and trim off. I'm using the fold as my guide. There we go. And pressing firmly, make sure that they are in position. Then I'm going to, again, reveal or take off this saran, the press and seal. It's not saran wrap, because saran wrap would not have the same effect. And I'm trying to get into the corner to pull from a corner. There we go. So carefully and gently remove that press and seal. And I'll tell you, the critical parts are those little tiny thin bits where the paper can easily tear. So be careful as you're pulling that. I see this little part here, there. Let's take your pick tool, is very handy. I have several, and I keep different tools attached to different ones. There we go. And just going all the way around. You can see you don't want to just rip it off. You want to be gentle, go slow, so that you don't rip your cardstock. All right, and we are almost there. We need to add a grading to this card as well. There we go, and make sure it's right side up. And we can do the same on this card. I'm looking around for my embossing buddy. Here we go. All right, how's it looking? Does it seem complicated? Is this something that you might try? Remember, this is under 10 steps. That came out a little bit wiggly. I'm okay with it. It's handmade, right? I don't have a clean line right there. And I suspect that's why the top kind of got a little wonky. I'm going to bring in my lovely hello and flip this over. I need my mini dimensionals for this. And again, if you haven't had a look at this hybrid embossing folder, it is in the mini, which is ending at the end of the month. However, this folder and die are carrying over, so you'll still have a chance to purchase it. It is very cool. It has lots of nice greetings that you can add to different occasion cards. And again, I like to make sure that every little end is secured down. And I've got pretty much all over. All right, let's take the tacky off of this. And if you are just joining me, we are creating the floating frame technique cards in 9 simple steps. You will be able to view this over on YouTube. So it's Just Stamp with Anna Marie over on YouTube. And if you would like the written instructions, make sure you're on my email list. I will be emailing this out by Monday morning. If you know of anyone that would be interested, share this or send them over to my site to subscribe for themselves so they can get this as well. Okay, so we are nearly there. What we've just done, we just completed step number 8. We took the frame panel and the second card base. We adhered our greeting, and the last and final on this card is going to be to add our embellishments. I am using the 2325 in color dots, and I'm using the Moody Mauve. And some of these are pretty simple to use just your fingers. If you don't want to use take your pick. I just kind of pull the plastic back, and I'm going to add some dimensionals. And this really does polish off the card. You don't want to skip this step. These dots, by the way, are on the last chance list, and they're on sale. Let's see. I'm using several little dots here. My supply is dwindling of Moody Mauve. I still have the other colors, so there we go. And so now I've got 2 of those. Remember, for every process, we create 2 cards. I'm going to bring in my second with the die cut itself and add my embellishments. And the embellishments are pretty much at your discretion, wherever you see a spot that needs a little floaty in there. So, and I think I'm going to do, yeah. Am I happy with 3? I'm not sure. I want one someplace. Let's see. Let's do the triangle in there. All right. There we go. There is our second card. And actually, these look a little bit different. And that's the caveat to handmade cards. They're all going to come out different. You can see the coloring is different on this one. And the placement's a little bit different too, even though I was following my model card. So there is the Floating Frames card in 9 easy steps. If you have any questions, make sure you're posting them here, just to make it clear. All right. What do you think of the colors? Do you like the bubble bath and the old olive together? I think the magnolias come out really pretty with just that tinge of pink. Again, the bundle is just stunning. If you want the written instructions, be sure you're on the mailing list. If you want to purchase the bundle, this bundle is on low inventory currently. If you'd like to purchase, here's the address to go shop. Use the host code and I will send you a free gift with any amount. You don't have to just meet a certain minimum. Place that in your cart. It's the Magnolia Mood bundle. I also used the the Thoughtful Memories dies, the hybrid dies, and the deckled rectangles. So those are the tools that are on the project. The paper was the thick basic, the basic white, and a little bit of bubble bath, and those pretty embellishments. So yeah, there you go. Post a comment, let me know what you think. Is this a technique that you try? I hope to see you soon. I invite you to join me in person if you're local. I have 2 upcoming dates. I have my Greetings card kit of the month coming up on the 30th of April. You need to RSVP by tomorrow. And I also have the Kit and Cocktail evening coming up on Wednesday, the 24th at 6 p.m. And I will post a link for more information on both of those events. I hope you can join me. And I hope you enjoyed your short time with me. Thanks so much for joining. Be sure to give me a comment, give me a thumbs up or a heart so I know that you were by. Oh, Dixie just joined and said she missed it. Catch the replay, Dixie. I think you will love this technique. It will also be over on YouTube. I will see you soon. Have a good weekend.